Nothing can separate us, nothing can separate us, nothing can separate us from your love. No power on earth below us, no fear from up above us, nothing can separate us from...
Right. Staring at that blank page, or maybe the blank screen. Could be you're writing a report, maybe prepping a presentation, or like we're talking about today, trying to start a new song.
Yeah, that feeling of paralysis, like you need some kind of lightning bolt of genius just to get going.
Exactly. But, what we're looking at today suggests it's maybe less about waiting for genius and more about, well, having a plan.
That's it. It's often just about lacking a structure, a system. The idea here is you don't need that sudden flash of inspiration. What you need is a blueprint, something to guide you.
Okay, so that's our mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We're digging into a really practical system. It's aimed at anyone, really, who needs to create songs consistently, songs that are, solid scripturally, but also easy for a whole group, like a congregation, to actually sing.
And they call it the 5-step scripture-first method.
Right.
And the interesting thing, the frame for this whole method isn't about crafting like one perfect masterpiece. No, the goal is volume, consistency. It's actually positioned as a kind of shortcut, a system designed for, well, massive output.
Wow.
Yeah, the promise is basically if you use these steps, you can move past waiting for inspiration and essentially run a songwriting factory. You could potentially write hundreds of songs this way.
A songwriting factory, that definitely shifts the perspective. It's less art project, more disciplined process.
Precisely.
Okay, so let's unpack this. Where does this factory process start? It sounds like the foundation, the raw material, is key.
Absolutely. Step one is, well, it sounds simple. Pick the scripture.
Okay.
The idea is you choose a verse, maybe a short passage, something that genuinely speaks to you, inspires you right now. But there's a catch, a strategic choice here that really impacts the whole factory idea.
And this connects to the kind of scripture you pick, right?
Yeah.
The source material is quite specific about avoiding, say, long stories.
Exactly. If you want speed and clarity, like in a factory, you need components that work quickly. Long narratives, like the story of Jonah or some detailed historical account.
Right.
They just take too much setup, too much explaining for a typical 3-minute song people need to grasp immediately. It slows everything down.
So if we're dodging those complex stories, what are we aiming for instead?
You're looking for those really profound, maybe more isolated statements, or clear, bold promises, things that stand on their own.
Like theological anchors.
That's a great way to put it, yeah. Statements of belief or truth that just resonate without needing tons of context. They often have that clear subject-verb-object thing going on, which, works really well for simple songs.
Okay, that choice alone seems like it could save a lot of time. The example they use is Romans 8.35.
A perfect example, yeah. That big rhetorical question. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress? And so on. It's powerful, it's immediate, it doesn't need a whole backstory. It anchors you straight away in that feeling of God's faithfulness, God's love.
And that clarity sets up the next step.
It does, perfectly. Step 2 is all about highlight keywords.
Okay, so we have the verse. How do we start pulling lyrics out?
This is what they call the lyric core. You literally write down just maybe 2 or 3 really important evocative words or phrases from that scripture. These become the absolute center. The song has to revolve around them.
2 or 3, that sounds restrictive. What if I find 4 or 5 good ones?
But that's the point. Sticking to just 2 or 3 forces focus, it builds a kind of fence around your idea.
Okay.
It stops the song from wandering off topic, which is, a super common problem, like when the second verse suddenly feels like it's from a different song entirely.
Got it. So it's like restraint for the sake of clarity.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So for that Romans 8 example, what were the key words they pulled out?
Right. They identified 3. First, separation. That kind of captures the struggle, the spiritual condition maybe the listener feels.
Second, nothing, which is the powerful answer, right? It defines the huge extent of God's love, the absolute nature of it.
And the third?
Love of God. That brings it home, defines the eternal nature of that relationship, the Christian's position. It ties it all together.
Separation, nothing, love of God. Okay, so those 3 words basically define the whole theme. Everything else has to relate back to those.
Exactly. They're your orbit. And that naturally leads us to the next big question. How do we turn these powerful but still kind of abstract words into something people can actually sing?
Yeah, this is where it gets really practical, I guess. Step 3.
Step 3. craft a simple chorus. They call this the memory anchor.
The memory anchor.
And honestly, if you talk to people who use this method successfully, they'll likely say this is the most important step.
Really? Why is that?
Because this needs to be the bit everyone gets instantly.
Right.
Short, super repeatable, something the whole room can sing almost immediately, without needing music or lots of practice. Okay, so how do you guarantee that kind of instant singability? Are there rules?
There are two really crucial ones for you, the listener, to grab onto. Rule number one, simple meter.
Simple rhythm.
Yeah, the rhythm has to be easy to feel, almost intuitive. You know that feeling in church sometimes when the rhythm's so tricky?
Oh, yeah. Everyone's sort of stumbling over the words, trying to figure out when to breathe.
Exactly. Simple meter avoids that. It lets people focus on the message, not the mechanics of singing.
Makes sense. And rule 2.
High repetition. The main idea, the core truth you got from those key words, it needs to be repeated a lot.
Like a mantra, almost.
Kind of, yeah. It drills the truth in, makes it stick in your memory long after the service ends.
Okay, so applying that to the Romans 8 example, those words, separation and nothing. How does the chorus come out?
It becomes really direct, really focused. The example they give is just, nothing can separate us, repeated. Like, nothing can separate us, nothing can separate us, nothing can separate us from your love.
Simple, direct, memorable.
Yeah.
Hits that core truth over and over.
That's the goal. Highest yield truth, repeated often.
Okay, so we have this strong, repeatable chorus, this memory anchor. What's next? Do we need context for it?
We do. That brings us to step 4. Write a verse about the truth. This is basically the setup.
The setup, okay.
And the verse here has a really specific job. It doesn't need to be like amazing poetry. Its job is just to use simple, plain language to set the stage for the chorus.
So it's like the why. Why are we singing this big truth in the chorus?
Exactly. It primes the listener emotionally. The idea is, identify a common struggle, maybe pose a question people relate to from their lives, and then point straight to the chorus as the answer.
Problem, then solution.
Right. It gives you a reason to sing the answer. For the Romans 8 song, the setup verse language is really efficient. If God is for us, who can stand against us? Gave up his son, he calls us friend.
Okay. It establishes that relationship, the safety, the promise, and then boom, the chorus hits with nothing can separate us.
Exactly. It builds the energy right into that core, repeatable message.
Okay, this is making a lot of sense structurally. But, you could write the most theologically perfect song, but if people can't actually sing it.
And it doesn't really work in a congregational setting, does it? You might have the greatest message, but if people are struggling with the notes or the rhythm, they're distracted, not worshiping.
Right.
And that's where step 5 comes in. It's like the crucial usability test.
Okay, what does that involve?
Step 5 is simply keep the music singable. This is like the factory's quality control. It checks basically 3 mechanical things that often get overlooked. First up, tempo.
The speed of the song.
Yeah, keep it moderate, accessible. The suggestion is somewhere around, say, 70 to 100 beats per minute. That's kind of the sweet spot.
Why that range specifically?
Well, much slower can feel kind of dreary, like a dirge. And much faster, it just gets hard for a large group to stay together. The words can blur. That range tends to feel comfortable for most group singing.
Okay, tempo. What's
Yeah.
the second check?
Vocal range. This is huge. You've got to pick a key where the melody sits comfortably for the average singer. You don't want people straining for high notes or mumbling on low ones.
Right. So are there specific keys that tend to work best?
The source gives some general guidelines, like maybe C, G, D, or A if your main worship leader is, say, a typical male voice, or maybe A, D, E, or F for a typical female lead. The main thing is the chorus can be the highest point, that moment of release, but it can't be a real strain to hit those notes repeatedly. That just tires people out and makes them self-conscious.
Okay, tempo, vocal range.
Yeah.
What's the third constraint for singability?
This one's key for that congregational success. Keep the instrumentation and, crucially, the chord structure simple. Like, really simple. This isn't the place for, complex jazz voicings or lots of unexpected chord changes.
Why the push for simplicity there? Like, they mention using basic 4-chord progressions, the classic IV, maybe GDEMC.
Right. Those progressions work so well for a couple of reasons. First, they're just familiar. People have heard them countless times in pop music, worship music, everywhere, so they feel comfortable, predictable to the ear.
Familiarity.
And second, they're kind of emotionally supportive without being overpowering. They let the words, the actual scriptural truth, carry the main emotional weight, rather than overly complex music dictating the feeling.
So simplicity is the driving force.
Mm-hmm.
And that applies to the overall song structure, too.
It does. The structure hack they suggest is just as straightforward. Stick to something like verse, chorus, bridge, chorus.
Pretty standard.
Very standard. And that's the point. Avoid long, rambling instrumental breaks or sudden key changes that throw people off. Simplicity builds confidence, encourages participation right away.
Okay, so if we put it all together, looking back at that Romans 8 example song,
Yeah.
you start with that setup verse. If God is for us, then you hit that simple, repeatable chorus, nothing can separate us. That's what everyone latches onto.
Exactly. And then the bridge comes in. And this is where the system is clever, I think. It allows for a bit more theological depth, but only after people feel comfortable with the core message.
How does the bridge do that?
Well, the bridge often pulls from the slightly more complex parts of the source text in this case. The verses after Romans 8.35, like verses 38 and 39, it expands on the core idea.
Right, the example bridge has those powerful lines, no death, no life, no present, no future. And then later, no height, no depth, no past, no sword.
Yeah, those really flesh out what nothing means. They offer the detailed proof points from the scripture, but, and this is crucial, right after that depth, the song snaps immediately back to the simple familiar chorus.
Ah, I see. So the deepest theology is supported by and always returns to
Yeah,
the easiest part to sing.
that's the blueprint in action. You bake the theological strength into a framework that's designed for instant usability.
Okay, that really clarifies the whole five-step process. I'll just quickly tick them off again. Step 1, pick a profound statement scripture.
Right. Step 2, distill it down to just 2 or 3 keywords.
Step 3, build those into a simple, highly repetitive chorus, the memory anchor.
Step 4, write a simple setup verse to give context.
And step 5, always check, keep the music singable. Tempo, range, chords.
Got it. Now, the real test, the challenge that sort of defines this whole factory mindset.
And the multiplier challenge.
Yeah, the source really encourages you, the listener, to try this process not just once, but for maybe 10 different scriptures this week.
10, wow.
10 different core truths, 10 sets of keywords, 10 potential chorus ideas sitting there ready to go.
Approaching it that way. Yeah, you wouldn't run out of ideas quickly. You'd have these core modules ready to be plugged into those simple musical structures.
Exactly. You stop being the artist waiting for the muse and you start becoming that, well, that efficient songwriting factory.
It's a really different way to think about creativity in this space.
It is. And you know, what's really fascinating to me is that deliberate focus on the simple statements, the promises, often at the exclusion of the longer, more complex narratives from Scripture. That choice, prioritizing speed and singability by sticking mainly to the promise side of Scripture, it inevitably shapes the kind of stories and theology a congregation sees.
If God is for us, who can stand against us? Gave up his son, he calls us friend. If God is for us, who can stand against us? He will be with us till the end. Nothing can separate us, nothing can separate us, nothing can separate us from your love. No power on earth below us, no fear from up above us. Nothing can separate us from your love. No death, no life, no present, no future. We are yours forever, held in your love. Nothing can separate us, nothing can separate us, nothing can separate us from your love. No power on earth below us, no fear from up above us. Nothing can separate us from your love. If God is for us, who can stand against us? Gave up his son, he calls us friend. If God is for